What would you do if, while serving your country overseas, you found out your wife declared you dead, to steal everything you've built together? This isn't just a story of betrayal. It's a story of strategy, justice, and the kind of quiet strength that turns heartbreak into a takedown. Stay with me. Have you ever trusted someone so completely that when they betrayed you, it didn't feel like a slap, but like the slow unraveling of the ground beneath your feet? This isn't a story of rage. It's a story of silence, of a man who chose to listen before he acted, and of a woman who mistook quiet strength for weakness. My name is David Ramirez. I served 20 years in the U.S. Army, Master Sergeant, Special, Recon. I've spent nights under enemy fire, crossed borders no map would claim, and walked through war zones with nothing but instinct and discipline. But the battlefield that undid me wasn't made of sand or stone. It was a kitchen I'd remodeled with my own hands, a marriage I thought was built on loyalty, and a simple email that changed everything. It arrived on a Tuesday. Subject line: let's be adults about this. No greeting, no warmth, just legal documents, divorce papers. A note that she had already moved her friend into our house, emptied our accounts, and didn't see the need to talk. Just like that, 17 years, gone. And yet I said nothing. I closed my laptop, took a shower, reported for duty, because when you've been trained to stay calm in the chaos, you don't respond with noise. You observe, you wait. You let your enemy make the next move. That's how you survive. That's how you win. What she didn't know was that I had already started preparing, long before the email. I had seen the signs, the cold hugs, the late-night phone faces, the passwords that changed without a word, and I knew one day she'd mistake my silence for blindness. She didn't know I was watching, she didn't know I was documenting, and she definitely didn't know I would use her own lies to build a case stronger than any accusation. This isn't just a story of personal betrayal. It's about how one man's quiet discipline exposed a scheme that had targeted other military families, men who left their homes to serve their country, only to return to strangers in their beds and zeros in their accounts. And by the end of this story, you'll understand why calm isn't weakness. It's the deadliest form of strength. If you've ever loved someone who made you question your own sanity, if you've ever wondered what quiet revenge looks like, stay with me. You won't want to miss what comes next. Before we go on, take a moment to like this video if you believe in justice over drama. And if you've ever been through betrayal yourself, or know someone who has, leave a comment below. Your story might help someone else find their strength. Now let me show you how I turned betrayal into strategy, and silence into justice. They say betrayal doesn't happen all at once. It happens in slow, almost imperceptible shifts, like the weight of the air before a storm. I didn't wake up one morning and realize my marriage was over. It happened over time, in gestures too subtle to scream but too consistent to ignore. It began with Elena's questions, or rather, the absence of them. She used to ask about my missions, my men, my work. Not for details, of course. She knew, better than to pry, but just to know I was okay. She used to greet me on video calls with that playful look in her eyes, the one that reminded me why I married her in the first place. But about 6 months before my last deployment, the questions stopped. At first I chalked it up to stress. She worked full-time as a scheduler for a plastic surgery clinic and was studying online for a business degree. Long days, late nights. I wanted to believe she was just tired. We all get tired. That's marriage. That's life. But then came the gym membership, new fancy boutique style. She said she wanted to feel better. I encouraged it. We were in our 40s after all. Staying healthy mattered, except she never came back sweaty. Her gym bag stayed perfectly clean. One day I noticed her workout leggings were folded neatly in her drawer, still with the tag on. Then came the new friends. Women I'd never met, with names that sounded made up. Girls' nights that turned into weekends. A conference in Phoenix that never showed up on her work schedule. Laughter I'd hear from the other room when I walked in, quickly followed by a phone being turned over, screen facing down. She started locking her phone too. New passcode. Notifications silenced. I never accused her. Never raised my voice. That's not who I am. Growing up, my father taught me that real men don't chase noise. They pay attention to patterns. He told me, when people change, they rarely announce it, but they always leave evidence. So I began documenting, not in a dramatic, paranoid way, quietly, strategically. I opened a separate bank account under my middle name at a credit union across town. Just enough of my paychecks were rerouted to keep me from being left with nothing. Rented a small storage unit under a different address. I placed inside it my military records. The deed to the house, the VA loan was in my name. My mother's old jewelry. A box of letters from my first tour, my grandfather's antique wristwatch, and a hard drive with backups of every financial file and email I ever received. I never told her. I just watched and waited. The night before I deployed, she drove me to the base. There was no crying, no write me every day, no I'll miss you. She hugged me like I was a coworker going on sabbatical. I noticed her nails, freshly done, nude pink with gold tips. Elena never used to care for details like that. As I stood in the terminal waiting to board, I looked back one last time. She didn't wave. On the flight to Syria, I stared at the seat in front of me for 9 hours and tried to believe it was all in my head. That maybe I was imagining things. That maybe I was just another soldier scared of losing something while trying to protect everything. But when I landed and turned on my phone, there was no message from her. No, let me know you're safe. No, I miss you already. Just silence. That was when I knew. The marriage wasn't broken. It was finished. Still, I didn't panic. I went to work. My job was to stay alive, lead my team, and complete the mission. I couldn't afford distraction. So I compartmentalized like we're trained to do. But even in the chaos of the desert, I felt something unraveling back home. It was a Tuesday, 2 months into the deployment, when the email came. The subject line read, "Let's be adults about this." The body was short, 3 lines. She'd filed for divorce. She'd emptied our joint checking and savings accounts. She'd moved into our home with Bryce, a co-worker she'd once described as harmless. No explanation. No apology. Just a PDF attached with the paperwork. Legal. Cold. Efficient. I read it 3 times. Closed the laptop. Took a shower in the communal stall. Got dressed. Ate my MRE. Spoke to no one. That night, I replied to her message with 1 word. Understood. No threats, no begging, no drama, because deep down I already knew what she was capable of. But what she didn't know was what I was capable of, and that was her first mistake. She thought she was leaving a soldier. What she didn't realize was that she had just declared war on one. War teaches you one thing above all else: how to control your response. Not your emotions, not your instincts, your response. That split second between impulse and action is where men either live or die, win or lose. And right then, sitting on my bunk with the divorce email still open on my screen, I knew this wasn't a moment for reaction. It was a moment for precision. Over the next few days, I fell back into routine. Morning runs, strategy briefings, drone surveillance reviews. My team didn't suspect a thing. Not even my second-in-command, Miller, who'd known me since my first tour in Fallujah. But every evening, when the mess hall cleared and the desert cooled to freezing, I slipped into a different rhythm, one that had nothing to do with enemy lines or field logistics. I started investigating my own home. The first thing I did was log into our shared banking portal. I'd already seen the large withdrawal in Elena's email, but I hadn't realized how far back it went. Small transfers began the week after I deployed, $200 here, $300 there. Then $1,500 for home improvements, $4,800 labeled personal business expenses. Within 6 weeks, our joint savings account, $62,000 saved over 10 years, was gone. Our checking account had just $17.19 left. I screenshotted everything, created a secure folder, synced it to cloud storage I controlled. Then I accessed the security, cameras. Before I left, I'd installed a new home surveillance system. Elena had dismissed it at the time, said it made her feel paranoid. I told her it was for insurance. She didn't know I'd added remote access. The feed loaded slowly. Syrian Wi-Fi wasn't exactly high speed, but eventually I saw them. Him, Bryce. Mid-30s, gym-built, smug smirk that practically asked to be punched. He was walking our dog, my dog, drinking coffee from my Seahawks mug, wearing my favorite leather jacket, laughing with Elena in the backyard I'd built with my own hands. It wasn't the betrayal that got me. It wasn't even the disrespect. It was the entitlement. He acted like the house was his, like the life I built was his. I closed the feed and wrote a name in my notebook, Carlos Espinosa. Carlos was more than a friend. He was a former CID investigator who now worked for a cybersecurity firm in DC. We'd served together in Mosul, and he'd once found a kidnapped translator using nothing but metadata from a burner phone. If anyone could help me legally and discreetly, it was Carlos. I sent him a message through an encrypted military channel. Need eyes on a situation at home, financial and legal exposure. Confirm secure line and availability. He replied 3 hours later. Always. Send what you've got. I transferred everything. Bank screenshots, camera footage, a PDF copy of the divorce email, and a full list of known assets. Carlos called me on a secure line the next day. David, he said, you were smart to start documenting early. I've already flagged 2 red flags. Go on. First, your house. Elena filed a refinance application with a forged signature. Not just forged, sloppy. Wrong middle initial. Stroke pressure inconsistent. Looks like Bryce did it. My stomach tightened. How much? They pulled out $280,000 in equity. Half of that's already been transferred to 2 different accounts. One of them isn't even in her name. I rubbed my eyes. And the second red flag? Carlos's tone dropped. You're not going to like this. There's a $50,000 wire transfer to a man named Daniel Preston. He's a real estate consultant. Specializes in off-market sales, fast closings, often cash-based. I think they're trying to sell your house. The silence stretched. Somewhere outside, a mortar test boomed across the valley. She's trying to sell my house while I'm deployed, I said. Exactly, Carlos replied. And from the data, she's already met with an appraiser. Photos were uploaded to Preston's cloud account last week. I took a long breath. This isn't just a betrayal, I said. It's a full-blown setup. It's bigger than just her, Carlos said. I looked into Preston. He's worked with a guy named Bryce Halperin before. Multiple deals. The pattern's familiar. Woman divorces deployed spouse. House gets sold under market value. Money vanishes into LLCs. You might not be their first target. I sat back on my bunk, staring at the cracked ceiling above me. They chose the wrong soldier this time. Carlos paused. What do you want to do? Set a trap, I said. Not just for revenge, for justice. Copy that. I'll start collecting everything on Preston and Bryce. You keep pulling info on your end. The FBI will take this seriously if we can show a pattern. I ended the call and went back to the camera feed. Bryce and Elena were now sitting on the couch laughing. He kissed her. She smiled. But what she didn't know was that every move they made was now being recorded, time-stamped, stored, and watched. Not just by a betrayed husband, but by a man trained for war. And this war had only just begun. A soldier never enters a fight without knowing the terrain. In this battle, my terrain was legal, digital, and psychological, and the more I mapped it, the clearer the ambush became. Carlos called back. 2 days later with updates and ammunition. David, I dug into the refinance file. Your name's on it, but your signature isn't. The notary stamp? It's fake. The lender was someone named Madison Pike. She's got disciplinary actions against her license in 2 states. The deal stinks. I clenched my jaw. And the money? They pulled $280,000. Half went to Elena's personal account. The other half was split between Bryce and a shell company called PNT Consulting. Consulting? Yeah, except the address is a UPS mailbox and the phone number forwards to a burner. I didn't speak for a moment. Then, do we have enough to get federal attention? Carlos responded flatly. Close. But there's one more thing. Elena submitted a grant request using a forged DD-214 discharge form. I blinked. Wait. What kind of grant? A VA home modification grant for military widows. She filed it 3 weeks after you deployed. Claimed you were killed in action. Silence. Not rage, not heartbreak, just ice. She declared me dead. Carlos answered quietly. She did. I sent the documents to my contact at the VA fraud division. They're already flagging her. I stood up from my bunk and walked outside into the cold Syrian wind. For a minute, I watched the desert stretch. Across the horizon, a place of ancient silence and hidden violence. How fitting. She didn't just betray me, I said. She committed federal fraud using a soldier's life. Mine. And the best part, Carlos said, she left a trail. The IP address from the application submission traces back to her, clinic's Wi-Fi. I smiled for the first time in days. So now we trap them. Carlos paused. You sure you want to do this personally? I can escalate it to the bureau now. No. Not yet. I want her to think she's won. I want Bryce. Cocky. Let them walk right into their own mistake. That night I made a list. Install cloud backup for all camera footage. Forward security footage to Carlos weekly. Track every financial move on Bryce and Elena's accounts. Begin VA pension account, lockdown process, request emergency. Leave through my commanding officer by then. I'd built a folder thick with timelines, screen captures, transfer records, and messages. I even printed out Elena's Instagram posts. A recent one showed her on our back patio with the caption, "New chapter, new light." The irony was blinding. I got emergency leave approved under domestic legal conflict and flew home under a temporary alias. Didn't text Elena. Didn't call. I wanted to see the crime scene before they knew it was a crime scene. I landed in Spokane on a Wednesday, checked into a modest motel under the name Isaac T., and met Carlos at a diner outside city limits. You look like hell, he said. I shrugged. That's appropriate. He handed me a manila folder. Everything's in here. Signatures, IP logs, financial transfers, property listings, and this. He slid a single page across the table, a blurry scan of a contract. Bryce's signature listed under co-owner. Elena's above it. My name typed sat at the top. They're planning to sell the house within a week, Carlos said. Listing price $490,000. Current market value? Closer to $620,000. It's a lowball sale to a company Preston's connected to. I laughed bitterly. They're stealing equity. Carlos nodded. And forging your identity to do it. I leaned back. Then we move. The next day, I went to the loan office where the refinance had been processed. I walked in wearing my uniform, badge in hand, and asked for Madison Pike. The receptionist looked like she'd seen a ghost. I showed Madison my military ID, then pulled out the refinance file with my signature. This is not mine, I said. She started to stammer. Elena said, I stopped her cold. I've already filed a police report, and this meeting is being recorded. Madison paled. I didn't know, I swear, I didn't know it was fake. I'm sure you didn't, I said calmly. But now the FBI does. That evening I got a text from Elena. Elena, why is the bank calling me? Bryce says someone's asking questions. I stared at the screen for a moment, then replied, me. Who's Madison Pike? 3 dots. Then, nothing. An hour later she sent Elena, you need to calm down. This doesn't have to get ugly. I didn't reply. Ugly? She hadn't even seen ugly. The next morning, I went to the county clerk's office and filed a fraud alert on the house title. No sale could legally proceed without my verified signature. Then I filed a VA fraud report. Then a Social Security fraud affidavit. Each step was precise, each move calculated. Carlos called. The VA is greenlighting a formal investigation. FBI's Financial Crimes Division wants a full statement from you. When? 2 days. Spokane Field Office. They've already started looking into Preston's LLC connections. It's bigger than just Elena and Bryce. I stood in front of a mirror back at the motel that night. For the first time in weeks, I saw something returning to my eyes, not peace, not vengeance. Control. It was the look of a man who'd lost everything and was now ready to take it all back. And the best part? They were still too blind to see it coming. What started as a personal betrayal had now evolved into something larger, something far more calculated. I wasn't just dealing with a cheating spouse and a cowardly boyfriend. I was standing in the middle of a well-oiled machine built to exploit the most vulnerable, soldiers deployed far from home. 2 days later, I met with 2 agents at the Spokane FBI field office. Agent Warner, a quiet woman with sharp eyes and the posture of someone who didn't miss details, led the interview. Her partner, Agent Lewis, had the weary calm of a man who had seen too much and was waiting for proof to match. His instincts, they took my full statement. I handed over everything Carlos and I had compiled. Forged loan documents, bank transfers, IP logs, voice messages, security camera clips. I even included Elena's Instagram post, the one captioned, "New chapter, new light," as a symbolic, final insult. Warner leaned back in her chair. "This isn't just a domestic case, Sergeant. This looks like part of a pattern we've been tracking." "What kind of pattern?" "Targeting military families during deployments, multiple fraudulent real estate transfers, predatory behavior linked to spouses and romantic partners. We've had 3 open cases in the last 6 months, 2 Army, 1 Navy, all in the Pacific Northwest, all involving someone named Preston." Stomach dropped. "And Bryce Halperin?" Warner and Lewis exchanged a look. Lewis spoke. "He's come up before. Financial ghosting, false income declarations, using fake LLCs. Never enough to prosecute. Until now." Agent Warner tapped a document. "Your evidence gives a structure, timeline, financial trail, motive." That's when it hit me. I wasn't just a victim. I was the case that could crack this ring open. Carlos joined the meeting remotely via encrypted call. He walked the agents through the metadata, transaction chains, and document inconsistencies. Warner took notes like a court stenographer. Then came the big question. "Are you willing to cooperate in a sting operation?" I didn't hesitate. "Yes, on one condition." "Which is?" "I want Elena and Bryce to walk straight into it, no warnings, no polite knock on the door." Warner smirked. "You want them caught red-handed?" "No, I want them caught entitled. I want them to feel like they've won." The plan came together faster than I expected. We had surveillance on Preston, monitoring communications between him, Elena, and Bryce. The house, my house, was scheduled to be listed by the end of the week. The buyer was already in place, a fake LLC set up by the FBI posing as a cash investor. Preston thought he was selling under market value to a partner. Bryce thought he was about to pocket a silent bonus. Elena, she thought she was escaping a broken marriage with $500,000 and no legal trail. The night before the sting, I drove past the house one last time. It looked wrong. Same roof, same fence. But everything felt foreign. I watched from a block away as Bryce carried out boxes and chatted with a man in a blazer, Preston. Elena stood at the door, arms crossed, sunglasses on. They were smiling. Carlos was in the passenger seat with me. "You ready?" "I've been ready since Syria." The next morning at 10:42 a.m., Agent Warner texted, "Moving in 10." I accessed the live feed from my home security system. Bryce and Preston were inside the living room. Elena stood by the kitchen island holding a folder, the agent posing as. The buyer was already seated on the couch. I turned the volume up. Preston was saying, "List at $495, but he'll offer $470, all cash. You sign? He closes by Tuesday." "And the husband?" the agent asked. "Deployed. He won't make trouble. If he does, we'll settle him out. These military guys are all bark." That's when the door burst open. FBI agents flooded in, announcing themselves. Bryce dropped the folder. Elena stepped back, her face frozen. Preston looked like someone had just unplugged his reality. I watched all of it unfold from Carlos's phone, 1,000 feet away. Justice wasn't loud. It was efficient. 10 minutes later, I received another message. All three in custody. We'll need your formal testimony tomorrow. I nodded and turned off the feed. That night, I received a call from Agent Warner. David, we recovered something you need to see. During the arrest, Bryce's phone was seized. We found voice messages between him and Preston going back 6 months. Send them. She did. I listened in the dark, the screen lighting my motel ceiling. Preston, you sure she's on board with this? Bryce, yeah, she's ready. Says he's too busy playing soldier to notice what's happening. Preston, we need her to file the death claim too. That'll bump our margins. Bryce, I'm working on it. Once the payout hits, we're done with this city. My blood ran cold. The payout. They'd planned to cash in on my death. Not metaphorically, literally. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not from rage, but from realization. This wasn't a love triangle, it was a system. They'd built a routine. Seduce, exploit, forge, flip. And Elena, whether out of greed, delusion, or fear, had gone along with it. The next day, at the FBI office, Agent Lewis handed me another file. This is bigger than we thought. Preston and Bryce have moved through 3 states, 4 women involved, 2 VA loan frauds. Your cooperation just helped us connect the final dots. What about Elena? She's claiming she was manipulated. But there's enough evidence she actively participated. It depends on how far you want to take it. I looked out the window. Rain was starting to fall across the city, soft and gray. I don't need revenge, I said. But I do want accountability. Agent Warner nodded. Then we'll give her a choice. Full restitution, full confession, or face the same charges. And that's exactly what happened. In exchange for avoiding prison, Elena forfeited all claims to my pension, the house, and admitted to the forged documents in a recorded deposition. That statement would be used to support prosecution of similar cases. Bryce and Preston weren't so lucky. They were denied bail. Multiple counts: fraud, conspiracy, identity theft, VA loan abuse. The system they created to silence soldiers had finally turned on them. And the man they thought was too loyal, too distant, too blind, he was the one who brought the whole thing down. Some victories are loud, celebrated with applause, headlines, and medals. Others are quiet, heavy with truth, and earned through long nights, sleepless waiting, and a soul that's been burned clean by betrayal. This one was the latter. After Elena's deposition, the case against Bryce and Preston moved fast. The federal prosecutors wanted an airtight narrative, and with the digital trail Carlos had laid out and Elena's signed confession, it practically wrote itself. Bryce tried to play innocent, of course, blamed everything on Elena, claimed he was just following her plan, that she had used him, manipulated him. But the wire transfers told a different story. Over $140,000 had landed in his personal crypto wallets. FBI analysts found offshore accounts in Belize and Montenegro, both tied to Preston's company, PNT Consulting. Not only were they committing real estate fraud, they were laundering money through shell corporations that operated under the guise of consulting services for veterans. That was what broke the case wide open. This wasn't just an affair gone wrong. It was organized theft, targeting military personnel during their most vulnerable moments. Deployment. Elena had helped them gain access. Preston had provided the infrastructure. Bryce had executed the charm, and I had been their next paycheck. Until I decided I was done playing the fool. I spent the weeks after the arrest meeting with agents, attorneys, and veteran advocates. I didn't go back to the house. I couldn't. Too many ghosts in those walls. Instead, I stayed in the motel on the edge of town, ate from the same diner every night, and kept my phone charged at all times, just in case another twist came crawling out of the shadows. But what I didn't expect was peace. A strange kind of peace. The kind that comes not from winning but from finally knowing. No more guessing, no more wondering if I was being paranoid or if I was the problem. I had the facts. I had the truth. And the truth had set fire to every lie. About 2 weeks after the raid, I received a call from the federal prosecutor handling Bryce's case. He's agreed to a plea, she said. Conspiracy, fraud, wire transfer crimes. He'll testify against Preston in exchange for reduced sentencing. How reduced? 8 years minimum, no parole before 6. I nodded. What about Preston? He's fighting it, but he's got no ground left. With Bryce's cooperation and the data from Carlos, we're expecting 12 to 15. I took a deep breath. And Elena? She signed over the house. Declined legal claim to your military pension. Her license was suspended by the state board for ethics violations. No jail time, but she's not walking away untouched. It was fair. Not perfect, but fair. The next day I returned to the house. I went alone. No agents, no Carlos. Just me and a rental car. It felt like walking into someone else's life. The front door still stuck slightly when you opened it, the way it always had. The kitchen lights buzzed before they turned on. My tools were still in the garage, my coffee mug still on the counter, now coated with dust. The bed? Made. But not the way I made it. The hardest part wasn't seeing what had changed. It was seeing what hadn't. I walked from room to room like a ghost visiting his own funeral. The photos were gone, the plants dead. But the foundation, the bones, still mine. I stood in the living room, the same one where Bryce had stood, laughing on the security feed, the same one where Elena had whispered on the phone late at night. Now it was just quiet. I closed my eyes and let the silence stretch. Then I took off my jacket, rolled up my sleeves, and began to clean. Not for her, not for the past, but for me. For the man who had stood in the desert and chosen strategy over rage. For the soldier who'd come home and rebuilt a battle plan from pieces of a broken home. For the human being who had been underestimated by everyone, including the person he loved most. In the weeks that followed, I sold most of the furniture. Gave away the dishes, donated the clothes. I kept what mattered, my medals, my books, my grandfather's watch, and the hand-carved table I'd made with my father before he died. Then I listed the house. 6 weeks later, it sold, above asking price. I didn't attend the closing. Instead, I was already on the road headed east into Montana. Carlos helped me find a place, a cabin on 10 acres, backed up against a creek, with no neighbors for miles. 2 bedrooms, pine wood floors, a porch that caught the sunset like it was made for second chances. I named the dog I adopted Echo. He's quiet, loyal, never leaves my side. I didn't rebuild the life I lost. I built something better, not louder, not richer, just clean. One day while splitting wood behind the cabin, I got a letter forwarded from the FBI office. It was handwritten. Mr. Ramirez, you don't know me, but I'm the wife of a Marine stationed in Okinawa. I heard about your case from a friend in the VA network. I just wanted to say thank you. You stopped something that could have happened to us. You fought when it would have been easier to fold. You reminded me that silence is not weakness. It's power waiting for the right moment. Jasmine M. I read it twice. Then I pinned it above the fireplace. The fire crackled quietly below it. Echo lay by my feet, asleep. Justice doesn't always look like a gavel or a courtroom or a prison cell. Sometimes it looks like peace. And peace, once earned, is the loudest silence of all. It's strange how the end of something doesn't always feel like a collapse. Sometimes it feels like a door closing quietly behind you. And for the first time, you're not afraid to walk away. A few weeks after Bryce and Preston's indictments, Elena's lawyer reached out. She wanted to settle. We met in a neutral office downtown. No handshakes. Just silence and paperwork. Elena looked different. Her hair was tied back, her makeup gone. She wore simple clothes, no heels, no jewelry. She looked like someone who had lost control of the story. I didn't feel hate. I didn't feel much of anything. Her attorney spoke first. She's willing to accept a full settlement. She'll forfeit all claims to the house, pension, and joint accounts. In exchange, you agree not to pursue further legal action. I asked the only question that mattered. Is she admitting what she did? The lawyer nodded, sliding over a signed affidavit. It contained her statement, acknowledging her involvement in the refinance, the money transfers, and the forged documents. She claimed she had been misled by Bryce, but accepted responsibility for her participation. I looked at Elena. She avoided my eyes. Did you know about the death benefit claim? I asked. Her voice was thin. No. I thought it was a renovation grant, Bryce told me. She trailed off. I didn't press. Some lies don't need to be challenged. They unravel on their own. I signed the documents. The divorce was now complete, clean, legal, and irreversible. As I stood to leave, Elena said softly, "David, I never meant for it to go this far." I paused at the door, but it did. I didn't look back. Back at the cabin, I didn't celebrate. I just sat on the porch with Echo and watched the trees sway in the wind. I wasn't joyful. I wasn't bitter. I was done. And that, in itself, was peace. Later that week, I received an update from the federal prosecutor. Bryce had accepted a plea deal, 8 years with no parole for at least 6. He'd cooperated fully, providing documents and voice recordings that tied Preston to at least 4 other real estate scams involving deployed servicemen. Preston was going to trial. The evidence was overwhelming: forged deeds, fake buyers, laundered cash. The prosecution was seeking 15 years. Elena, though not criminally charged, was held financially accountable. Her nursing license was revoked. She was placed under civil restitution orders and was barred from participating in any property transaction involving VA loans. Justice wasn't perfect, but it was real, and that's what I needed. In the weeks that followed, I finalized the sale of the Spokane house and moved permanently to my Montana cabin. I cleared out my old digital life. New phone, no social media, no trace. I began writing in a journal each morning, thoughts, memories, questions. Not about her, about me. About what I'd missed, what I'd ignored, what I'd survived. I wasn't rebuilding the man I used to be. I was becoming someone better. And one afternoon, just before dusk, I received a letter. "Mr. Ramirez, you don't know me, but I'm a Navy wife. My husband was almost caught in a similar scam. Your case saved us. Your strength reminded me not to give up. Thank you." I pinned it to the wall beside the fireplace. I didn't need revenge. I never did. What I needed was to know that it all meant something, and now I did. Behind every betrayal is a pattern, a sequence of behaviors that, when ignored, lead not just to heartbreak but to disaster. What happened to David Ramirez isn't an isolated tragedy. It's a mirror, one that reflects the silent suffering of thousands of men, especially those who serve, who protect, and who endure. The truth is, many men are taught to value loyalty above all, to push through discomfort, to give more when they receive less, and to remain silent, thinking strength means not complaining. But emotional neglect is not just a feeling, it's a signal. As a specialist in trauma and relationships, I've seen the cost of ignoring those signals. When someone stops asking about your day, hides their phone, or starts rewriting the shared story of your life without including you, these aren't coincidences. They're preparation for betrayal. David didn't respond with chaos. He responded with clarity. He watched. He documented. He protected his future without firing a single emotional shot. This is what mature, strategic masculinity looks like in action, and most importantly, he didn't let betrayal define him. He used it, turned it into protection for others. His story helped stop a criminal ring, protect other military families, and reshape how we detect fraud against deployed personnel. The lesson here isn't about divorce or even fraud. It's about paying attention before it's too late. It's about knowing the difference between patience and denial, between loyalty and self-neglect. Because calm is not weakness, forgiveness is not blindness, and silence in the right hands is power. If this story resonated with you, take a moment to reflect and then share. Like this video if you believe strength means staying alert. Leave a comment if you've ever felt something was wrong, even when no one believed you. And subscribe to hear more stories where truth doesn't scream. It wins quietly. Your voice might be the one another man needs to hear. Not all heroes wear uniforms on the battlefield. Some win their war in silence, with discipline, truth, and the courage to walk away stronger. If this story moved you, hit like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. You never know, your comment might be the reason someone else doesn't fall into the same trap.